Merrick Alpert is in it to win it. The question is, does he have Richard Blumenthal running scared? Also, we're going to talk about a loophole that some say lets hospitals keep their secrets to themselves. And Coach Jim Calhoun is quick to make changes to the lineup, but will he substitute himself? Hi, you're watching The Real Story. I'm Lori Perez. We are staying busy trying to give you access and information about all of the candidates seeking to serve the people of Connecticut in public office. Today, we are happy to have with us a contender who's been on the trail since last spring and recently been making waves in the race for U.S. Senate, Merrick Alpert. He is a businessman from Mystic, a husband and a father, and a former Air Force officer who served as a peacekeeper in Bosnia. He started this race last May, ready for an in-party challenge to Senator Chris Dodd. With Dodd stepping out, of course, that challenger has changed, but his end goal has not. Thanks, Merrick, for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
Now, last week was a very big week for you. Fox Connecticut, The Current, and the University of Hartford hosted this debate, and it was the first U.S. Senate debate of the season. And the Current headline after the debate said something like, coming out swinging. It said that you really made the most of the opportunity. First of all, give us your reaction to the debate, how you liked it.
Well, Lori, I had a very enjoyable evening. I'm not sure that Mr. Blumenthal would say the same about his evening, but it was fantastic. I had a great night. I got to share with people my vision for private sector job creation and providing health care to every American and getting us out of Afghanistan and investing instead here in America. And it was a really, really enjoyable time.
What did you think about the reaction to your performance? I had Nancy DiNardo, the State Party chair, on last week, and she said perhaps that it was that people, you outdid the expectations that people had for you. I suppose it doesn't matter, but what do you make of that kind of spin on it?
Well, I don't worry about political spin. I just worry about the best policy, and I worry about who's going to be the best Democratic senator for the people of Connecticut. At the end of the day, I laid out a bold vision for job creation, for clean government, for health care coverage for all Americans, and for getting out of Afghanistan. And to be candid, Mr. Blumenthal, he really struggled. He talked about incrementalism. He had a very strange economic utterance where he said that his lawsuits created jobs, which, as you know, that is the quote of the night, and that is now a YouTube favorite out there. And so I think that the spinmeisters can try to do their work, but at the end of the day, look, folks know when somebody real is in front of them, when they're passionate, when they have a vision for the people of Connecticut and for this nation. And I had it that night, and it was a very enjoyable evening for me.
Now, since that evening, and recently, just a few days ago, Richard Blumenthal was asked by a Norwich Bulletin reporter about debating you again. He said he was very busy, and his people said they want to wait until after the convention. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that's silly, quite frankly. He obviously wasn't too busy the night of the first debate. He's obviously not too busy when he shows up at all these political events and ribbon cuttings. I think we need to be straight up with folks and not make excuses. Had he done well in the first debate, I don't think he'd have a problem coming out there again. He didn't do well. He was very shaky. I think, quite frankly, that he does a disservice to the Democratic voters in the state by not standing in front of them and discussing serious issues. And I think that beyond that, if he can't deal with an underdog, I'm not sure how he thinks he's going to deal with Linda McMahon. And as you know, at the end of the debate, his Washington political handlers, they hustled him out of there so he didn't have to face the media. So I'm not surprised, Lori, that his new campaign theme seems to be one and done.
Right. Well, they did tell us that he had a campaign event that night in Fairfield, so he had to get out in their defense. But
at 8:30 at night, oh well.
Okay. The other big word, I think the buzzword of that debate was incrementalism. Talk about why you use that word so much. And, you know, I think a lot of people, as Mr. Blumenthal said, think about politics as a cautious and a careful process, something that deserves step-by-step kind of analysis.
Well, I think, Lori, the problems right now that face our state and our nation are so severe that we don't have time for more career politicians and more incrementalism. And I think one of the reasons that I was very effective in the debate, and quite frankly, one of the reasons that Mr. Blumenthal struggled so severely, is that I set out a bold plan to get Americans back to work, to rebuild the millions of jobs that we've lost, to lay a foundation for the next series of jobs we're going to create. And he wasn't able to do that. He talked in small measure. But that makes sense if you think about it, because he's been very reactive. For 20 years, he's waited until there are serious problems, and then he brings lawsuits afterward. I've been very proactive in my life. That's true in my business career, and it's true in my military career.
But some people might say bold might be impractical because, for instance, your job plan, like it's a $1 trillion job plan, right?
Yeah.
And people are saying, well, we're already broke. Where are we going to get that money?
Yeah. Well, where we're going to get that money is by doing things like not spending $4 or $5 or $6 billion a month in Afghanistan, or wasting money on things like ethanol subsidies or sugar subsidies. We're going to invest that money to create American jobs and put it into American education and American infrastructure. We've been squandering away enormous sums of money, and we don't have anything to show for it. I plan on changing that. And so for me, that kind of bold action is what you need. Lori, I'm out there every day. I've met in this campaign, I've met hundreds of folks who've lost their jobs and lost their health care, and they've lost their hope. And it is not time for the incrementalism of a career politician. It's time for something much bolder.
Well, you just mentioned health care. Right now we are watching as our lawmakers in D.C. are debating health care reform again, and they're even debating how to get it through. What would your role in that conversation be?
Well, my role is to say that all Americans should have health care coverage. Right now we have 47 million Americans, as you know, who don't have coverage. And in my view, we need to expand the basic Medicare offering so that all Americans have a baseline coverage. If folks with resources want to buy supplemental coverage, by all means they can do that. But for me, we have to protect our citizens. It's a moral issue, as I said during the debate, but it's also an economic issue. We spend twice as much as most Western nations do on health care. And for me, that just doesn't make sense. There's a better way to do this so we can once again be globally competitive.
What do you think about the efforts, though, going on right now to get it passed? And, you know, some people think it's trickery or backdoor.
Well, I think President Obama is working hard. Obviously, I'm a progressive Democrat. So in my view, not surprisingly, I think the Republicans are not really very interested in a bipartisan solution. My view is that the president needs to drive forward. He needs to move forward with a solution. And if that means that he's only able to garner Democratic votes, so be it. He should move forward with a meaningful health care reform.
Now, you, Merrick, have called yourself an underdog. Realistically, I mean, what do you think your chances are?
Well, I think my chances got a heck of a lot better, Lori, on Monday night of last week. Look, the response now when I go out to see Democratic town committees has been tremendous. I knew something was happening after the debate. Alex and I were sitting in a restaurant with friends having dinner, and you could see the emails starting to flow in. The campaign contributions, requests for me to go visit town committees, requests for me to speak to civic groups. So clearly something is happening out there. And the something is that people realize that there's a new person, there's a new voice, and there's hope that we can start to bring about meaningful change.
On a lighter note, your voice, you talked about emails, and I was joking with you about your Twitter. You are so prolific on Twitter. I mean, I know more about you and your eating habits and your kids and your turtles. You're enjoying that?
I like Twitter. You know, look, there are a lot of serious moments out there. A lot of folks have lost their jobs and their health care, and they're hurting. And the lighter moments are really appreciated. Ted Mann from the New London Day the other day called me the undisputed poet king of Twitter in Connecticut politics, and I take that. I'm happy for that. So Twitter, it's fun. I ask folks to join me on Twitter. They can hear about the kids' turtle and the hermit crabs and my jogs and all the snack food I eat each day.
Right. I mean, it's a new tool, I guess, in this new world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Thanks, Merrick, for spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me, Laura.
Merrick Alpert, Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate. Up next, what secrets is your hospital keeping, and why are they allowed to?